Ember Knights is an action roguelite beat-em-up dungeon crawler game set in a beautifully colorful fantasy world, where you fight small monsters, mini-bosses, and bosses in order to defeat a mad sorcerer and free the universe from his corruption. But is Ember Knights worth playing? In this unsponsored, deep dive review, I'll tell you everything you need to know about the game so you can see if it's the right fit for you. So, let's get into it. Ember Knights is a fast-paced, procedurally generated permadeath roguelite where you shouldn't fear death, it's just the beginning. Each time you lose a run, you'll unlock exciting new items and abilities that add depth to your playstyle and allow you to customize your build with unique variations. Ember Knights is available to play on PC, on Steam, and Nintendo Switch. It has full controller support and runs excellently on the Steam Deck. The developers also recently announced that they are working on bringing the game to Xbox and PlayStation 5. And although there isn't an exact timeline on when these ports will be released, the devs have stated that their progress in porting the game over is going well, and they are hoping to release the console versions sometime around summer 2025. In Ember Knights, you'll play as the last spark of hope in a world filled with turmoil. Praxis, the mad sorcerer, has siphoned all of the life out of the Ember Tree and fled through the 4 prime worlds, spreading corruption in his path. Your goal is to wield the universe's most powerful weapons and hack and slash your way through deadly hordes and corrupted bosses in order to defeat Praxis and restore energy to the Ember Tree. The story in the game isn't particularly deep, but it does set the tone for the world you're playing in and give you your ultimate goals in the game. And there are animated cutscenes in the game, leading you through its key moments as you work to restore energy to the universe. Ember Knights is styled with top-down 2D pixel art, and is vibrant, immersive, and colorful. There are sound effects for interacting with the menus, using your attacks, and dealing with enemy attacks. And there's music in the game that makes impactful moments like boss fights feel even more intense. The game screen stays stationary as you move around, never changing orientation, for players who may get a bit of motion sickness from games like this. It is less taxing on the eyes than most bullet hells are too, but there are still a lot of moving colors and animations on the screen, which could cause eye strain or nausea for some players. Although Ember Knights is fun to play solo, co-op is where it really shines. You can play locally or online with up to 4 players total. If you play online, each friend will need to have a copy of the game, unless you're playing through remote play together. In multiplayer, each player, or knight, will get to choose their own character color, weapon color, skills, items, and more, and you'll work together to defeat the enemies and bosses you face ahead. And yes, like I mentioned, there is some character customization in the game. It is not a full-on character customization system like you may see in some other games, but you are able to choose the color of your Ember Knight, the color of your clothing, and the color or design of your weapon. This is especially helpful while playing multiplayer because you can each choose different colored characters to help keep from getting confused about who is who during combat. As you play, you'll also unlock more colors you can choose from, for your character as well as your outfit and weapons. I should note though that the clothing style your character wears is associated with the class they are. For instance, if you choose to use the Guardian Bow, your character will wear a hooded outfit. And if a player chooses to use the DLC gun, the Ember Buster, the character will automatically wear a kind of techie-looking outfit. So that's it for the character customization in the game. But although the character customization is rather simple, and so is the story, Ember Knights' best feature is really its gameplay. I mentioned before that the game is permadeath, but Ember Knights doesn't feel like a particularly punishing permadeath game. If you die but your friends survive, they can carry you through for a few more rooms and your character will resurrect, making this game a great choice for gamer and non-gamer duos or for different age duos, like parents and children, to play together. Even if your character dies, you find yourself on the edge of your seat rooting the remaining player on, and hoping that they can carry you through long enough for you to revive. And this isn't a game where it takes a very long time to revive either. If you die during one of the rooms with small monsters, you typically only have to wait for your friend to clear a couple more rooms with small monsters in order to get you back. And if you die during a mini-boss or boss fight, you will resurrect automatically when your friend beats the boss. So you're never left sitting around for long feeling bored or bad about dying. You can get back into the action pretty quickly. Additionally, there are perks you can unlock from the Ember Tree, as well as items you can find around the world in your runs that will allow you to resurrect or survive a hit that would have caused your death. There are also healing items you can find around the map, such as apples, pies, and meat that will restore your health. There are special rooms with healing fountains and resurrections for players, skill upgrades you can unlock that will allow certain skills to heal you as you use them, stat orbs that increase your maximum health and heal you slightly, and plenty of relic items you can choose for your build to make the game feel more forgiving, even for players who are less used to combat-focused games. Yet, despite all of the customization in the game, Ember Knights still doesn't feel too confusing. Every choice you're given is one at a time, and each item you're presented with will simply explain what it does. Even the extra perks and modifications you'll unlock outside of your runs back at the Nexus lobby area are granted to you one by one as you progress, and the NPCs introduce each new thing to you so you never feel lost. Even if you beat the game and you want to add difficulty modifiers to your runs, you can choose to do however many and whichever modifiers you'd like, so you can still challenge yourself but keep those challenges reasonable based on how comfortable you feel with the game. So if you're new to beat 'em up games like this is a very player-friendly option to get into. As far as combat goes in the game, fighting in Ember Knights feels smooth and enjoyable. Attacking, dodge rolling, chaining attacks, getting benefits for having perfect timing on your attacks and dodges, and so on, make the combat feel fun, fluid, and engaging. You'll fight your way through combat rooms with small mob enemies, some more difficult than others, encountering rooms with helpful buffs and items along the way. After you defeat a few rooms with small monsters, you'll meet a mini-boss, and after a few more rooms of monsters, you'll need to fight a world boss to continue on to the next world. Enemies include a variety of beasts, ghosts, magicians, mechanized amphibians, and other creatures. There are over 60 different monsters and variations of them in the base game alone, each with their own unique attacks and behaviors you'll have to learn to battle against. Additionally, there are elite and champion variants of the enemies in the game too, which are harder to defeat compared to the smaller mobs. There are 4 worlds you can explore in the base game: Scoggfirth, Steadfast, Citadel, Wightsbury, and Anville, as well as an end world called Netherra, where you'll fight the final boss. Each world has bosses and mini-bosses that are specific to them, with the exception of Netherra, which only contains the final boss and smaller adds, though some of the adds might remind you of difficult enemies you've seen before. In the DLC, you'll encounter variants of the original worlds called Mycelioth, Inferno, Bastille, Akamura, Simulon, and Netherra ... In addition to having various worlds you can explore in the game, there are tons of different items you can choose from to help you throughout your playthroughs. These items are called Relics, and there are over 100 of them in the base game. Relic items can be equipped to your character to give you unique buffs, and they only last for the run that they are found or purchased in. However, finding items called Relic Orbs during your runs and taking them back to Esper in the Nexus or the lobby area will unlock new relics you can encounter in your playthroughs. Relic items do all sorts of helpful things, and you'll have to carefully select which relics you want to use throughout your playthroughs. Some can make your first hits guaranteed crits on enemies, others can grant you shields, some can restore your HP when you enter a new room, some can buff your friends, some can cause extra status effects to enemies, and so on. Throughout your runs, you'll earn Ember, which you get to keep even after your run ends. You can spend Ember at the Ember Tree in your Nexus lobby area, allowing you to choose extra permanent perks for your runs, such as the ability to revive when you die, having extra starting gold so you can buy more shop items, enabling the bosses to drop relic items when they're defeated, and more. You can also spend your Ember to purchase relic items that you can take with you into your next run. These can be bought from Arlen, who runs the Nexus's relic shop, and they are very helpful to buy if you already have all of your perks at the Ember Tree unlocked. or if you just want to take some extra relic items into your runs in order to help you out. The items available to you in the relic shop refresh between each run, and anything you buy from there will go with you into the next run that you're about to do. After the run's over, the item will disappear from your inventory and you'll have to buy something new from the relic shop if you'd like to take something helpful with you into your next playthrough. Relic items you can get in the Nexus cost Ember to buy, corresponding in amount to the price in gold that you would pay for them if you were to find them in the world. And yes, gold will allow you to buy items during your runs. You can find gold as you go through the game, and the gold you have refreshes after each run ends. So feel free to spend your gold freely throughout your playthroughs, because it will disappear once your run is over anyway. There are small and large stat orbs you can find throughout the world, which boost your stats during that run, which include HP, damage, skill damage, crit chance, and speed. There are also a variety of status ailments that you can encounter in the game, including poison, burning, and freezing, and effects like stun, lightning, and slow. There are debuffs as well, like weaken, the star debuff, and bow mark, as well as buffs like armor and war cry. There are 7 weapons in the base game, as well as 2 that are available to you if you buy the DLC. When you start off playing, you'll only have access to 1 weapon, but as you play, you'll earn Ember, which will unlock the additional weapons, excluding the Void Mantle, which is unlocked after you defeat the final boss, Praxis, in the base game. The first weapon you'll have access to is the Ember Blade. This is your standard 3-hit combo melee sword, which also has a dodge roll lunge attack you can use during your 3-hit combo without interrupting it. At 250 Ember, you can unlock the Guardian Bow, your first ranged weapon. There's no ammo count for the bow in the game, so you can shoot as much as you'd like with your infinite arrows, and every third attack you do in your combo will shoot multiple arrows. You can also charge up your Guardian Bow shots to pierce enemies, with perfect shots doing extra damage. At 800 Ember, you'll unlock the Nexal Staff. This is a ranged magical weapon that specializes in the use of skills. The Nexal Staff allows you to hold your attack button to rapidly zap in a cone-shaped area, and refreshes your skills for the enemy's hit. It has bonus skill damage over the other weapons, and the last hit in your staff's zap attack will deal bonus damage based on the skills you've refreshed. At 1500 Ember, you can unlock the Rift Hammer, a slow, heavy-hitting melee weapon that slows enemies with each hit. Like the sword, it has a 3-hit combo, and you can charge all of the attacks in this combo to do extra damage and give the weapon an AoE effect. When the third attack in your combo is charged, the weapon will explode in a line that stuns enemies. At 2200 Ember, you'll unlock Razor Wind, which is sort of like a Ninja Star style weapon. It has a 3-hit combo and a ranged charge attack that acts somewhat like a boomerang. Similar to the Guardian Bow, its charge attack does bonus damage when it's perfectly cast, and if a charged attack turns around on top of an enemy, that enemy will get hit 3 times in rapid succession. At 3000 Ember, you can unlock the Reaper's Toll, a close-range AoE melee scythe that has a powerful ranged slash attack you can charge by landing your third chain attack. If you hit enemies with this ranged slash, they will also be dealt crits more often. And the last base game weapon is the Void Mantle, which will unlock after you defeat the final base game boss, Praxis, for the first time. I don't believe it has any Ember prerequisite, just the fact that you've beaten him should unlock it for you. The mantle is a long-range weapon that is focused around casting dark, magical spells. If you've purchased the DLC for the game, you'll also have access to the 2 additional weapons, and I don't think there are any prerequisites to unlocking these weapons besides chatting with the NPC available to you in the Nexus. The first of the 2 weapons is the Hyper Gloves, a close-range melee weapon built around punching enemies, and the last weapon is the Ember Buster, a ranged projectile gun with an ammunition mechanic. Interestingly, each weapon also has a modification tree, which has 3 tiers and allows you to choose 1 skill from each of the 3 tiers to power up your weapon and customize it to best fit your playstyle. For instance, the Guardian Bow's first tier of modification lets you choose between having your third attack rapidly shoot 3 arrows, having the third attack shoot a spread of 5 arrows, or having your charge attack deal bonus damage to enemies who are inflicted with status ailments. The Guardian Bow's second tier will let you choose if you want your charge attacks to ricochet to additional enemies, release a falling arrow volley at a target location, or allow you to chain perfect attacks to add additional arrows to your shots. Then, the bow's final tier will let you choose if you want your third attack to mark an enemy, increasing the damage they take, if you want your charge attack to shoot a short-range explosive arrow, or if you'd like your attack speed to increase each time you defeat an enemy. Once you unlock all of the tiers, your weapon will also get a bonus effect. On the bow, for example, you'll receive a modification called Empowered Arrows, which makes your perfectly charged attacks empower your next 3 chain attacks. To upgrade your weapons with modifications like these, you'll need to collect Ash, a different currency that you can find throughout your runs. Gold, Ember, and Ash are your main currencies in the game. While gold will disappear after each of your runs, the amount of Ember and Ash that you collect will remain, and you can spend it back at the Nexus lobby area between your playthroughs. In addition to paying for you to unlock weapon modifications, you can also use the Ash you've collected to upgrade your skills. When you start the game for the first time, you'll only have 6 skills available to you, but as you play, you'll have the ability to find and unlock up to 20 skills in the base game. Each player can have up to 2 skills equipped at a given time during their playthroughs. Players will find skills during their runs and can choose up to 2 skills to have actively equipped at a time. If you've upgraded your skills with Ash in the Nexus, you'll have random chances of encountering those skill upgrades throughout your runs. And if you encounter these upgrades, you can apply them to your skills as you'd like to enhance them to be more powerful. The Wrath of the Architect DLC also adds 9 more skills to the game, several of which are based around summoning ally pets to aid you. But besides summoning pets, there are other skills that are new to the DLC, such as skills that release homing missiles, allow you to punch or dash through enemies, hurl giant molten boulders at your enemies, throw a spike that pierces enemies and sticks to the ground, dealing AoE lightning damage, and even a parry skill that allows you to counter enemy attacks and destroy nearby projectiles. As you fight your way through the different worlds in the game, you'll often be given a choice regarding which room you'd like to enter in order to move forward. When this happens, you'll see 2 doors you can walk through next to get to the next room, each with a little icon beneath them. Pay attention to what these icons are because they show you what benefits the next room will hold for you. Some doors will show a heart, meaning you can heal up and revive friends there. Others might show stat boosting orbs, so you can choose whether you'd like to go on a room that gives you crit boost orbs versus movement speed increasing orbs. Some rooms can be shops or special NPC rooms, and others can let you choose whether you want to select a new skill or receive a new relic item. Choose wisely which door you prefer, and then walk through. Once you reach a certain point in the game, you'll be presented with 4 cursed relics that you can choose to pick up. These are different from the relic items that you would find normally in the game. You can only hold 1 cursed relic item at a time, and instead of buffing you like normal relics do, they will give you a variety of debuffs. For instance, these cursed relic items can do things like darken the world around you, reduce your movement speed, disable one of your skills, make you unable to heal, and so on. The curses from these cursed relic items will last throughout the entire world that you're in. Once you defeat the final boss in that world, your cursed relic item will cleanse, and you'll be left with a helpful version of the relic instead that you can take with you throughout the rest of your run. For instance, if you choose the relic that made it difficult for you to move, when that cleanses, you may have a relic allowing you to dodge roll twice. And if you play surrounded by darkness, you and other knights may have a chance to ignore damage taken every so often. These relics are very powerful, but the drawback is that you'll have to survive the world first in order to get their cleansed versions. For those who enjoy a bit of a challenge, this mechanic is very fun, feeling like a powerful reward for playing well despite dealing with a significant debuff. There are also several random encounters you can have in the game, such as a mysterious mimic and offering pit. I won't give too much info on these just so you can explore them for yourself, but I just wanted to note that there are some things you can encounter during your runs that are a bit more rare and offer unique benefits to you interacting with. Some special areas in the game can also be found by attacking certain walls and completing little activities during your playthroughs. I also won't say much more about this for the sake of spoiling content, but these little things can give you special perks if you find them. There is also an item in your lobby called the Compendium, which shows how much content you've unlocked in the game and how much you've yet to find. Reading the Compendium can give you helpful tips on how to complete achievements, 100% the game, find special character cosmetics, and more, so it's worth taking a look at if you're interested in those things. There are also pets in the game, specifically an Ember cat and an Ember dog. The pets don't accompany you throughout your runs as far as I've seen, but basically will hang out in the lobby area of your game, where you're able to choose your skills and items before the run begins. They're basically just cute cosmetic unlockables that you can interact with between your runs. You can pet the dog and the cat, but most of the time the cat is laying curled up somewhere out of your reach. You can also play fetch with the dog if you'd like. I've unlocked both of these pets, and it seems like the cat appears randomly during your runs and then disappears shortly after you see it. If you encounter it enough times, the game will tell you that you've become friendly with the cat, and it will vanish and be back at your base permanently after that. I tended to encounter the cat in the Anville region, but I'm not sure if that's the only region you can find it in, or if that's because I was doing Chaos mode at the time and just got the Anville world as my first world several times. The dog, on the other hand, was trapped inside a block of crystal for me, inside of Netherra, and me and my friends had to break the dog out of the block of crystal in order to free it and have it reappear at our base. Once again, I'm not sure if you can find the dog in other areas of the game or not, but this is just where it showed up for me. The Ember Dog and Ember Cat are available to players who don't own the DLC, but they were added to the game around the time the DLC was released. And the Ember Cat was added because players all said they wanted an Ember Cat in the game as well. So that's really cute, and it's been impressive seeing the Ember Knights development team listening so much to the players throughout the making of this game. And finally, in addition to the base game mode where you fight through small enemy rooms and defeat bosses and mini-bosses, and in addition to the modifiers you can add to increase the difficulty of the base game, there are other game modes that you can enjoy in Ember Knights. Endless mode allows you to continue playing after you've beaten your run for as long as you can, and each loop you do of Endless mode will have increased difficulty. This mode allows you to build up your stats and relics more, get more Ember and Ash, and give yourself the personal challenge of seeing how long you can go without dying. It also allows you to complete certain challenges easier, like perfect boss kills as well. After the third round of Endless mode, you'll see the movement speed and damage dealt from your enemies increase pretty significantly, typically outscaling you unless you manage to create a very strong build. The recent DLC release also added 3 new modes to the base game, available for all players to experience, not just those who own the DLC. The first of these new modes is the Boss Rush mode. In this mode, you'll be able to face a series of bosses in succession without the usual small mob rooms you would see in between. The objective is to defeat as many bosses as you can within a set time limit. The bosses you'll encounter are random, but I believe there was a concern that players had that sometimes they would encounter Praxis' second form before his first form, leaving the rest of the Boss Rush challenge feeling easier than expected. But the recent version 2.1 update seems to have improved some of these complaints. Praxis, True Praxis, the Architect, and now the True Architect fight have all been reorganized to the end of any Boss Rush mode that they appear in, which should make this mode feel more balanced and challenging for players. The next new mode is called the Daily Dungeon mode, which offers a unique generated dungeon experience that has specific modifiers and challenges. And the 2.1 update expanded this further by adding 35 new dungeons to this mode and increasing the rewards you get for completing more difficult daily dungeon challenges. The update also removed some relics from the Boss Rush mode's relic pool that weren't really applicable, which should make the entire experience feel more tuned for players. And finally, there's the Chaos Run mode. This introduces a random selection of worlds, enemies, and events that you can face. In this mode, you won't go through the normal linear progression of biomes and enemies that you usually would. Instead, it's shuffled, which can end up throwing harder enemy combinations or unfamiliar areas at you earlier than you expected. That's it for the different game modes that Ember Knights has. But even with a lot of content like this, you might still be asking the question, is Ember Knights actually a very replayable game? And yes, I would say that if you enjoy the feel of the combat in Ember Knights, and you also like trying out different combat builds and getting various achievements and unlockables, you probably will find a lot of replayability in this game. Even if you happen to technically beat the base game during your first run, you will only have a small amount of unlockables available for you to use in the game at that time. Every subsequent run you do will unlock new upgrades for you to experiment with. There are variant versions of the bosses and mini-bosses you encounter as well, and an alternate version of the final boss fights in both the base game and the DLC. As I mentioned, there are different modes you can play to spice things up, and there are modifiers that you can add to your runs to increase the difficulty of them and earn you extra rewards. Ember Knights is purchasable for $19.99 on Steam and Switch, but it often goes on sale for as much as 50% off on Steam, dropping down the price to as low as $9.99. But is it worth that pricing in terms of the playtime you might get out of it? That mostly depends on how well of a fit this game is for you, as you can get plenty of replayability and playtime out of it if you enjoy it. Many casual players seem to get between 17 and 30 hours out of the game, while more dedicated roguelite players might get somewhere between 100 and 300 hours out of the game. So depending on what player you are, you may find the price more or less reasonable for the amount of time you might play the game. So what's my verdict? Is Ember Knights worth playing? While I'm a cozy gamer at heart, I do love playing games with a bit of action to spice things up every once in a while. But if you're someone who doesn't like games that are combat focused, this game probably won't be your cup of tea. But if doing some combat with friends sounds fun to you, Ember Knights might be right up your alley, and be an easy roguelite to try out compared to some others. The combat is smooth, fluid, and enjoyable, and you'll unlock new things each time you have a successful or even unsuccessful run. I don't even typically like permadeath games, but I've always gotten something new from every one of my runs, even if I end up losing, making my future runs easier and more enjoyable. The progression of the game feels really nice in that way, and there are so many new relics and skills you can unlock, as well as multiple weapons to play using, so there are tons of interesting ways to spice up your builds during each run and change up your playstyle. I originally bought Ember Knights during one of its 50% off sales, and I've been really happy as a casual player with the amount of time and enjoyment with friends that I've gotten out of it. If you enjoy games like Enter the Gungeon or Hades, but just wish that you could play them online with your friends, then Ember Knights could be a really good fit for you. But what about the DLC? Is that worth getting? Ember Knights has one paid DLC available to play, called Wrath of the Architect. This DLC adds 4 new bosses, 4 new mini-bosses, 4 altered versions of the original base game worlds, dozens of altered new enemies with varying attacks, 2 new weapons you can play, 9 new skills you can use, a new final boss fight, and a new true version of the final boss as well, which is more difficult. There is also a small bit of extra story content that this DLC adds, with a couple of new cutscenes based around Praxis trying to achieve ultimate power by taking on the Architect, the creator of time and space itself, in battle. Upon launch, the Wrath of the Architect DLC had many players feeling like the final boss fight against the Architect was a bit underwhelming, as it felt easier to beat than the base game's final boss fight. However, the development team behind Ember Knights has been paying close attention to the feedback from players. Shortly after the DLC launched and they received the player responses regarding it, they mentioned on Reddit that they were working to patch the DLC, particularly improving the balancing within it, planning an improved fight with the final DLC boss. This new patch quietly released about 2 days ago in an update called Architect Unleashed. In order to create this update, the developers worked directly with playtesters in the community to update the challenge of the Architect final boss fight to better align with the difficulty players faced during the base game Praxis final boss fight, addressing some of the original mixed responses about the balancing of that. And they also added an alternate version of the boss fight with the Architect that wasn't in the DLC previously, called the True Architect fight, and added special rewards for beating that version of the fight, such as a new skill and player color. To unlock the True Architect fight, you will need to be doing your run with several difficulty modifiers on. I'm not sure how many modifiers it actually takes to encounter him, since my friends and I typically max out our modifiers in Doom mode for each run, but I will say that encountering him in his true version is a blast. His health bar is split into 4 sections, with each section being a different styled phase you'll have to fight through. And having fought both versions of the final Praxis boss in the base game, I felt like the developers did a great job bringing this fight more in line with those battles in terms of balancing. The devs also added a 10th tier to the boss rush mode for players, and updated the Steam lobbies to show all multiplayer games, as well as made some additional balance changes and minor adjustments to the rest of the game. If you enjoyed the base game, you will probably enjoy the new flavor added by the variant worlds. But they are variant worlds, so the aesthetics and mechanics in them do feel quite similar to the original base game. For example, instead of Lord Bruma, you'll fight with Lady Inferno. And in the world where you have the option to choose the cursed relic items for your run that debuff you, and then cleanse with their beneficial properties, you will also have an option to choose from cursed relics in the alternate world too. So for some players, this reflection of the base game may feel too similar to be engaging, especially when the aesthetics of some of the small enemies have only slightly changed and their attacks can feel reminiscent of the base game small mobs. However, many of the enemies do have new mechanics and force you to fight them differently, though there is still some variation there. Several players have had concerns that some of the new bosses in the DLC also have invincibility phases, with some of those phases taking up a decent portion of the fights, especially because part of the Ember Knights challenge is to get through worlds quickly in order to get bonus rewards for your runs. So some players do feel like the new DLC bosses are a bit annoying because you do have to wait for them to get out of their invincibility phases, taking more time on your world timer away and making it less likely that you might end up getting the reward you can get for beating the world in time when you reach the end of the world. The Wrath of the Architect DLC is available for $9.99 on Steam and Switch, and frequently goes on sale for $7.99 during its 20% off sales on Steam. But is it worth that price? If you plan to play with friends and you will be the host of your games most of the time, I would say yes, it is. And that's because if the host buys the DLC for the game, they're able to share the content with their friends while playing together. I tested exactly what could be shared, and it did seem like most of the content was available. Your friends can play the 2 new weapons during your run, try out the new skills in the game, and battle through all 4 new altered worlds, playing against all of the new bosses and mini-bosses. I did notice, though, that some of the unlockables didn't work for the players who didn't have the DLC personally, even when playing together, like the character cosmetic color you receive for beating the true architect fight, but that felt like a very minor thing compared to how much of the content was actually available to the host's friends. Now, what if you're not going to play with friends? Will this DLC still be worth it to you? I would say that depends, especially at full price. If you love the base game in Ember Knights and have poured countless hours into playing that, you probably will enjoy the new content that the DLC has to offer. The new mini-bosses are a fresh experience, and although a lot of the content visually looks reskinned and enemy attacks are pretty similar to what you've seen before in the game, the DLC still does add some variety to the game that makes it enjoyable to play. However, if you're a more casual player or you already feel like the areas and enemies in the game are a bit redundant, you probably will not enjoy the DLC. And if you're bothered by several of the new bosses having brief invisibility phases to deal with, or you do like to play the game with shorter timer settings on your runs for added difficulty, you may find the invisibility phases affect the timer too much and feel frustrated. But if you're a more casual player who has enjoyed the base game in Ember Knights, and the invincibility phases of the bosses don't bother you, I would say it's a toss-up about whether you'll enjoy the DLC or not. It does add about 1/3 of the base game content in new content to the game, so if you don't mind the aesthetics feeling a bit samey or a bit like a reskin, and you just want to do a couple of runs of the new content, experience some new boss fights, and unlock some different skills to use, you may find the DLC fun. But still, if you're unsure but feel like you might enjoy the content, it may be best for you to get it on a sale rather than at full price if you're curious. But exactly how much playtime does the DLC add for the price? Since you can't see the playtime of Steam users specifically in the DLC, I'll share some of my personal estimates and experience on this. I would say if you're a general casual player, it would probably take you about 2 to 3 hours to play through the new content twice if you don't die and you aren't playing for the timer mechanic in your runs. Once to beat the normal version of the Architect, and another with difficulty modifiers on to defeat the true Architect's variant boss version. After those 2 runs are completed, you'll still probably want to do a few more runs just to unlock the rest of the skills and items from the new content, which could potentially increase your playtime to anywhere between 4 and 8 hours. If you're a more dedicated player or a big fan of roguelites, I would potentially guess that you could get over 20 or 30 hours of playtime just out of the DLC alone. So what's my verdict? Is the Wrath of the Architect DLC worth buying? If you enjoy the content in the base game and you don't mind the new DLC content looking and feeling a bit like a reskin, and you just like having about 1/3 more of the content that you already enjoyed in the base game, melded with a bit more variety in the enemies you can fight, you will probably like this DLC. If you enjoy the idea of having more skills and items to experiment with when making builds during your runs too, you will probably enjoy this as well. But there are definitely some players that probably shouldn't buy this DLC. If you're not interested in the gun-style blaster weapon or melee fighting styles that involve a lot of punching, like the hyper gloves are based around, then you probably won't get much benefit out of the 2 new weapons in the DLC. Likewise, if you would feel bothered by the DLC content feeling or looking a bit like a reskin of the base game, you will probably find the new content a bit lacking or shallow. If you play for time in the game, and especially if you add modifiers to shorten the amount of time you can take per run, you might also find the invincibility that the new bosses have more irritating than fun. And if you prefer sticking to a build you already like, and don't necessarily care about having a few more skills and items to play around with, then you probably just wouldn't benefit much from buying the DLC. Personally, I enjoyed the DLC, especially after the new 2.2 update that released a couple of days ago fixed some of the major balancing issues that players had with the DLC at launch. I don't care much about the small mobs feeling samey, and actually found their updated fighting styles interesting enough to pose a bit of a different challenge. While I preferred sticking to my Guardian bow for most of the combat, I did like the feel of the Ember Buster and would be interested in trying it once I unlock all of its modifications. And I enjoyed testing out the new skills and items in the DLC too, but my favorite part of the DLC was definitely the boss fights, especially the new updated True Architect variant fight. I'm excited to play against the bosses more in the boss rush mode, especially now that they've added a 10th tier to that mode too. And even though I'm a casual player and will probably only get around 4 to 10 hours out of the DLC overall, I enjoy variety and felt like the DLC price, especially since I grabbed it during a sale and am able to share the content with all of my friends, was pretty fair. And that's it. If I missed anything in this review, please let me know, but hopefully this gave you all of the information you needed to consider whether or not buying the base game and the DLC for Ember Knights is the right fit for you. There's a surprising amount of depth to this game, which seems simplistic at first glance, making it a great choice for multiplayer with friends or for players who just love customization in their fighting games. Thank you so much for watching. I know I typically review cozy games, but I do also enjoy playing some games that are a little more tense, like horror and more combat-focused games from time to time to spice things up a bit. Because cozy games are awesome, but sometimes it's fun to play something different too. But anyway, if you like seeing me review more of these games, let me know in the comments. And if you found this video helpful or enjoyable at all, please consider taking just a moment to give this video a quick like, and please subscribe to my channel if you'd like to watch more of my content. I'm still very new to YouTube, so I really appreciate any help you can give to my channel. Thanks so much again, and I hope to see you again in my next video.